no? So as we all know that fire has a lot of uses to man, as or to even to animals or to all living organisms. So again, it might be for the man, it can be a use for cooking our food or to keep us warm at night, no? Warmth at night. So fire also is our protection against uh, animals that might try to no to hurt us, or it can also be used uh, to convert something or to convert an object into a useful instruments. So while the application of fire has served man's need, no, so it is also an enormous and dreadful tool from society in life and property. So human or animals cannot survive even without fire, because fire is an important God's creation, no, for the no, to survive the daily life, no. So this is now the question. So later on, it will be the answer will be flashed at the bottom part of your presentation, no. So the question one is, the known earliest use of fire to mankind was, is it A, shaping of weapons, B, changing clay to pottery, C, keeping warm and furnished light, or D, cooking their food? So what would be your choice? Anybody would like to volunteer? What is the answer of this question? Ano ba ang gamit ng apoy sa tao? What is your choice?
Letter C,
C,
sir.
sir.
Letter C.
Cooking their
Letter
food.
C.
C,
Water.
sir.
Okay, let us see.
C, sir.
Okay, tingnan natin ha. Okay, the correct answer is C. Yes, you are all correct. So, the fire keep us warm at night, and it also serve as light during darkness. Okay. Now, another question, in the process of combustion, for instance, now if you could remember combustion has stages. So, burning a wood or paper, what is being burned in combustion? So, is it A, B, C, or D?
A, sir. A.
Okay,
A,
somebody say
A, sir.
A.
C,
Okay,
C, sir.
C.
C, C.
Okay. So the correct answer of that is letter C. Now remember class that in combustion process, what is being emitted first is the vapor. If you try to notice that, now I'm pretty sure lahat tayo may experience na gumamit ng apoy, no? Especially the matchstick, no? Try to imagine the matchstick. What is being emitted first before the actual combustion was the stick, no, the wood, that match, no, the wood. First, the vapor from the wood is being emitted, meaning the watery substance inside the wood is first being uh, heated, and then once it is heated, it will turn into a vapor in a form of bubble. So pag naging bubble na yan, it will then be it will then escape into in open air, turning it into a fuel. So that vapor is one being consumed by the fire. So yan po ang kinakain. Hindi po actually, I'd like to correct this, that hindi po kinakain ng apoy ang wood or ang matchstick. It is the vapor coming from the wood or the matchstick. Okay? So, if you try to make an experiment, now, if you have there with you a wood or a matchstick or posporo, you can actually experience that, no? So, the 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 wood there represents the material which is being used as a form of combustion. So, in the combustion process kasi may mga stages 'yan. First, to make it fire, it needs heat. Now, we all know that. Second, it needs air. Third, it must have a fuel source. So the fuel source there is the wood. So the wood is the one being used by used by the heat to convert it into a vapor or in a form of bubbles. So once it is being converted into a vapor, it is now a gas stage. Nasa gas stage na siya. Pag nasa gas stage na siya, yun yung kanyang kinakain, no? So what is left in the wood is thus only the ash or what we call the black soot, no? Yung black soot, yan yung effect ng kanyang ng heat kasi heat as we all know travels depending on the material that is used. So halimbawa, if the material used is an iron, the heat can transfer, no? Like for example, kung nagluluto tayo, okay, the other one is what we are using here in our electrical lines, no? The heat is being transferred from one point to the other point. And then in the other one, if kung halimbawa kung gumamit ka naman ng kahoy, yung wood, so the transfer of heat, it might be slow depending on the material, the thickness, the width, and the shape of the object. So this is the process of combustion. So first, the correct answer there is the letter C, emitted from the burning item. Okay. So fire, as we all know, is the rapid oxidation of substance often with evolution of heat and light in varying degree and intensities. So if we say intensity, magdepende siya kung ano yung kanyang intensity kasi may mga klase kasi na mga intensity. Ang intensity kasi is nagdidepende kung ano ang kanyang storage. For example, kung ang kanyang pinaglagyan ay isang LPG gas or liquefied petroleum gas or LPG, or it is a fuel or it is a gasoline. So it depends upon the intensity. So often it is a misconception if fire burns the actual char, that's not chair, of piece of wood is the gases given off in an object that burns, no? Heat causes the object gives of these flammable gases. So ito yung sinasabi ko. What causes the vapor to come out is because of the heat, no? When the gases reach out its ignition temperature. So if we say ignition temperature, it's another term. If we say ignition temperature, ito yung kanyang temperatura na kung saan naroon na ang tamang init, tamang hangin at saka fuel source. So you see the light given off during the oxidation known as the fire. So when these three combines, there is a chemical chain reaction process called the fire tetrahedron theory. So if you say chemical chain reaction, yung tatlong elemento na yan, once they combine, they create a chemical chain reaction. And the product of the chemical chain reaction class is what we call the fire. So fire is a product of chemical chain reaction. So again, what is being left in that item that is being burned is what we call the ash or char. So another question number 3. Ignition temperature is also the same as A, B, C, or D. What is your answer?
C, sir, plus.
Flashpoint ba? Okay, tingnan natin. Flashpoint ba? The correct answer is fire point. Now, what is the difference between a flashpoint and a fire point? No? So flashpoint is when an enough air is being introduced into the heat and into the fuel. So, if we say anong ibig sabihin niyan, sir? Kapag na halimbawa ang apoy ay nasa loob ng isang kwarto, sarado ang kwarto, tapos bigla mong binuksan. Once an air is always present, no, especially outside. So when there is an instant introduction of air into a room, it may create a flashpoint. So ito yung biglang pagliyab, no, pagliyab ng apoy. It's because the three elements are already present. So what is missing lang in a flashpoint is the amount of air. Kulang siya ng air kaya hindi siya makapagbigay ng apoy, no? This is really confined us in unconfined spaces or room. So ang fire point naman, it is the temperature that is that it is the temperature that reach when an object is being heated in a combustion process. So pag na-reach na yung temperature point or fire point ng isang object kasi magbabari yan. Halimbawa, kung ang nasusunog ay isang cotton at ang nasusunog ay isang kahoy, so magdidepende sila sa kanilang fire point, no? Yung cotton mas madaling masunog kumpara sa kahoy. Yung cotton masunog, mas madaling masunog kumpara sa papel. Or let's say, yung damit, kasi ang damit lalo na pag no, let's say pag ang damit medyo kuan siya, heavy ang kanyang thickness, no? So mas kuan siya, no? Hindi siya bigla na masusunog. So yun yung fire point. The fire point signifies the weight, the thickness, and the shape of an object and the type of material being consumed by the fire. So the fire point comes in when the temperature, when the material reaches its highest, or what you say, fire point, no, or temperature or fire point, no. So the correct answer in this question is fire point. Okay, another question. In general terms, what is heat and light that comes from the combustion of the substance? So what is your answer?
Fire.
Is it fire,
Flame.
flame, heat, temperature?
Heat.
What is the heat and light
Heat.
that comes from the combustion? Okay, the correct answer here is correct. You're all correct. Fire. So the fire is the product of heat, no, and combustion. So heat, light, and combustion. So it is yung liwanag na makikita natin sa apoy, those are all product of heat, light, and coming from combustion. Okay. Another thing, the combustion process is also the burning process known as, what's the correct answer? A, B, C, or D? Combustion process. Mayroong other term. If you can remember, there is an other term of the combustion process. And the correct answer is letter C, pyrolysis or pyrolysis. So this is the other term of the term combustion. So pyrolysis, take note on that, no? Another thing. Okay. So these are the fire triangle theory. If you can still remember, there is one element, the one important element is the oxygen, which is present in the surrounding. The heat coming from any sources, it could be chemical, mechanical, or it is a natural, or it could be let's say natural, mga direct light o mga sunlight or moonlight. So it could also be coming from a lightning, or let us say coming from let us say a stove, or say an electrical surfaces or electrical wirings. Then the fuel. So fuel, there are so many forms of fuel. So the wood can be a fuel, the gas, even the LPG, no, the vapors are fuel. So once these three connect at each other, it creates a chemical chain reaction. So it will then turn into a fire. So may apoy na mangyayari kapag nagsasanib pwersa ang tatlong elemento na to. So you have to remember that. Okay? So another board question. Among the elements of fire, the most important is, what do you think, class? A, B, C, or D? Oxygen ba?
Heat, sir. B.
Heat ba? Okay, titingnan natin kung tama kayo. The correct answer is oxygen. Remember that what I've said in what we call flash point and fire point. In flash point, what is missing is the oxygen. pag wala si oxygen, hindi na introduce kahit na magsanipwersa pa si fuel at si heat, wala pa ring mangyayari na fire. Kasi si oxygen ang nagbibigay buhay. Sila yung so kung sa kuan pa, siya yung life giver, si oxygen, no? Life giver siya. Okay. Without oxygen, fire cannot be uh, cannot happen, no? So kahit naman if we say vice versa, kahit naman walang fuel, wala pa ring fire. Kahit naman walang heat, si fuel lang saka si oxygen, wala ring fire. And that is true. But the most important thing there is the element of fire which is most important is what we call the oxygen. So I want you to learn on that. Okay. So just a sort of review lang. Fuel, it is a fire. For a fire to start, there must be something to burn. So these are the example. No, for the heat naman, for a fire to start, there must be a source of ignition. So ignition coming from, it could be the heat coming from your surroundings, or it could be a friction of both, no, of both object, no. So we human, we are also a product of friction from our parents. Kaya tayo nandito sa mundo, no? And there it could be a spark. If we say there is a loss of connection or there is an octopus in connection, it could create spark. If we say spark, it is an attraction between two objects, no? Or there is what we call a jumping of connection from one to other object. And the other one is what we call the oxygen. So again, for the source of oxygen, it is needed that approximate, take note on this, 16% is required. So for the normal air, it contains 21% of oxygen. So ibig sabihin, class, uh, ang ang ang, ang oxygen is limitly may 16% siya na oxygen. Pero in a normal open surroundings, no, in an open air, 21% mas marami ang oxygen pag nasa labas kaysa sa loob ng bahay. Okay, or sa loob ng opisina or building. Okay? But again, there is now a premise that the oxygen that we are breathing is no longer fresh oxygen. It contains other chemicals or elements. Okay, so this is now the fire tetrahedron theory. So if you can still remember, there are four sides of the tetrahedron. Kaya nga tinatawag siya tetra, parang tetra pack kasi apat yung sulok niya. So what are these element? No, we have the heat, the fuel, the oxygen, and the uninhibited chain reaction. So if we say uninhibited, ito yung process na hindi siya walang nag-i-interrupt sa kanya, no? Tuloy-tuloy lang ang kanyang pagmi-mix ng mga yung tatlong elemento. So the fourth one is the uninhibited chain reaction. Okay. So the fuel, the red part, other term of the fuel is what we call the reducing agent. Why reducing agent? It's because it is being consumed. Consumable po si fuel. Then the air is same, or other term is the oxidizing agent. So why oxidizing agent? Because it's the one gives the life to the fire. No? On the other hand, the heat signifies the temperature. It's the one gives the warmth on the object. And then the fourth one is the self-sustaining chemical chain reaction. So ano itong self-sustaining? So when the three elements are present, it consists of sustenance of what we call the chemical reaction. So pag hanggat ang yung tatlong ito ay nandito pa or nandyan pa, present pa, nagsusustain siya. Meaning he can live by his own without the help of others as long as these three elements are present. So this is what we call the chemical chain reaction, or in short, chain reaction. No? Okay. So another question. The fire triangle represents the glowing mode of fire while the fire tetrahedron represents the blank of fire. What's the answer? A, B, C, or D? Anyone?
B.
Letter B or
D.
D? Letter
D.
D.
B,
Okay.
sir. B.
Okay, the correct answer is letter B. Boy, flaming mode. So, the fire triangle represents the glowing mode. Take note on the word glowing mode. Other term is flaming mode. Okay. So, another question, how much percent of oxygen is needed to sustain? Yan, bago na natin to binanggit. Oh, the answer is
A,
letter
B.
A.
sir. 16%.
Letter A. Oh, kailangan lang ng apoy ng 16% kahit hindi sa labas kasi mas lalo na sa malabas sa labas pag mahangin, di ba? So, kailangan lang apoy ng 16% in order to sustain itself. Okay? So, the more the oxygen, the intense the fire is. So take note on that. Halimbawa, 'di ba, kung sunog, kung ang sunog na nangyari sa gabi. Pag gabi kasi usually hindi hindi ganoon kalakas ang hangin. Kaya yung mga ibang bahay hindi masyadong nadadamay. Pero pag ang sunog nangyayari umaga o di kaya hapon, ayun nako. Kung titingnan natin ang daming nadadamay na bahay. It's because yung hangin kasi can sustain the combustion process. The more the oxygen, the more the intense also the heat and the fire it will occur. Yan. So that's it. So ito yung fire mode, no? We have the fire triangle, it represents the glowing mode of fire. We have the fire tetrahedron, it represents the flaming mode of fire. So if the process is confined with pressure, it is called an explosion. So if you can remember, class, the term backdraft or let's say flash point. So ang flash point kasi or yung backdraft or yung explosion, mangyayari yan kung ang isang sunog ay nangyari sa isang confined nga space. Halimbawa nito, ito sa baba. If it is a room, for example, what is present is the heat and the fuel. Now, the question is, does it does it create fire? The answer is no. It's because it is confined. Ang kulang sa kanya is yung oxygen. Now, halimbawa, bigla kang pumasok, no? Inopen mo yung pinto, pumasok ka bigla. Ito yung mangyayari, explosion ang mangyayari. We call that the backdraft, no? The backdraft is the one of the primary killer of our firefighters. So, lalo na pag hindi nila alam na may nangyaring sunog sa loob. Now, if combustion propagates at supersonic speed, it produces a detonation. So, para yung bomba. Para yung bomba, class. So again, you just try to remember if it is happening in a confined spaces. Yan. Lalo na pag walang entry or walang exhaust, nako. Okay. What is produced when fire in its supersonic speed mode? A, B, C, or D?
A, sir.
Explosion. So, tingnan natin. The correct answer is letter B. Detonation. Okay. That is produced when the fire is in its supersonic speed. Okay. Take note the word supersonic speed, detonation. Okay. So, this is the life cycle of the fire. At first, meron tayong tinatawag na input heat. So, kailangan mo niya munang magkaroon ng heat, no? The source of the heat. So, it could be electrical system or computer devices or electronic or let us say a kitchen or let us say friction or let us say mechanical motors or whatever. The next thing, kailangan niya may fuel siya, may fuel source siya. It could be a wood, stick, cloth, plastic, hay or whatever. So those are what represents the fuel. The third is the oxygen. So or the oxidizing agent. Then when the three combines, this is what we call proportioning and mixing. So proportioning and mixing. So when it happen, ignition occurs, or there is what we call ignition continuity. So so you just try to imagine that, because that is the fire life cycle. Now, after the ignition continuity, ang mangyayari dyan is sustenance. Sustain. Magsusustain si fire hanggat mayroon pa siyang tatlong elemento. Now, kung naubos na yung isa, eventually the fire starts to slow down or die. So what is then being left is the ash or the char. Okay? So another board question. What is also known as pyrolysis? Is it A, B, C, or D? What is your answer? Pyrolysis.
Process. C.
C, combustion process. Okay, let us see. All of these, the answer is letter D. So, what is known as pyrolysis? So, all of the above. So, pyrolysis is also known as the thermal decomposition of matter. It is a burning process. It is a combustion process at the same time. So, pyrolysis class happens in this particular figure. So when the fuel is heated until its temperature reaches its fire point, yung sinabi kong fire point, and then it produces the fire, of course. So when the fuel is being consumed, decomposition takes place. So yun yung decomposition, yung ash na lang. So moisture in the fuel is converted into a vapor. Now take note on that. That's what I've said in the matchstick or in the wood. So decomposition produces combustible vapors that rise to the surface of the fuel, or what we call as the free radicals. So take note on this. So the free radical can be seen on above, no? Ito yung mga gases that forms by or the product of the combustion. So it is the product of kining heat. So ang ang importante lang sa kanya, i-combine niya muna into vapor, and then once it becomes a vapor stage, it will then form into a gas. So kaya once the gas is being is being offered, it will then be the food of the fire. So the free radicals undergo combustion. So ito yung mga makikita natin na black smoke, gray smoke, white smoke, yellowish, blue, bluish orange. Yan. So dito yun makikita natin yung mga klase ng flame niya. But above that is what we call the gases area. So actually class, in the fire cases, bakit namamatay ang tao sa sunog? Is it because of the heat, the fuel, or the oxygen? So the answer there is not actually among the three. Wala sa kanila. Kaya ang tao namamatay kasi nalalanghap niya ito yung mga residual smoke or gas or gases. That what kills a person, causes the person to what? To collapse. No? Because you are unable to breathe once you inhale these gases or residual smoke. So I'd like to correct that it is not the fire that kills the person, nor the heat or the fuel, but it is the residual or gases coming from the flame. Okay. Another board question: in the burning process, what are being burned are gases or vapor known as free radicals. Among the following, which is not or the list of free radicals? What's your answer, class? Hello, are you still there?
Yes, sir.
Nitrogen.
So the correct answer there is let's move fast forward na lang, no? The correct answer is letter D, inert gas. So inert gas na is what which is not or the list of free radicals. Another thing, the constant temperature at which the vapor pressure of the liquid is equal to the atmospheric pressure is called, what's the answer? Letter B, boiling point. So this is common to a boiling point is applied to liquid only, no? liquid only. Halimbawa, so water, the kerosene, the gasoline, what else? The ano pa? Yung even the oil has its what we call boiling point. Okay. Now, these are the physical properties of fire. May tinatawag tayo na specific gravity. We say specific gravity, we are referring to the ratio of the weight, no? Take note, gravity, yung bigat ng isang fuel or object. May tinatawag tayo na ratio of the weight. So, that is your key term. Gravity means weight, no, of the solid or liquid substance. Sir, yung liquid ba, sir, may gravity, may weight ba? Yes, meron. Yung solid, the more. Yung halimbawa yung tubig sir may weight ba? Yes. The other one is what we call the vapor density. So, if you say vapor density, the vapor also has what we call weight. Is the weight of the volume of the pure gas composed to the volume of the dry air at the same temperature and pressure. So, yun tinatawag natin na vapor density. And the other one is what we call the vapor pressure. If we say vapor pressure, it is the force exerted by the molecules on the surface of the liquid. So force is say, halimbawa ang good example nito class ay yung tinatawag natin na mga fire extinguisher. Or let us say the LPG tank na ginagamit natin pagluto. Okay? The next is what we call temperature. So the measured degree in thermal agitation of molecules. So temperature is a boiling point. It is which the constant temperature of the vapor pressure of the liquid is equal. I say that again, equal to the atmospheric pressure. So that's what we call the boiling point. And the other one, we have ignition, kindling temperature. So the minimum temperature which the substance must be heated in order to initiate combustion. So if we say kindling class, try to remember this. Yung sa mga construction na ginagamit pagpatayo ng bahay, no? Yung ginagamit ng mga engineer ngayon in order to make sure na matibay ang kanilang ginagamit na material, lalo na pagkahoy. Dinadaan nila yan sa sinatawag na kindling process. Ano ba yung kindling process, sir? Normally sa kahoy kasi may mga tubig pa yan sa loob. So in the kindling process, dinalagay sa loob, niluluto ang kahoy. The purpose of that is to again to expel all the vapors coming from the wood. If you try to remember, yung mga pool ng ano ba ang tawag sa Iligan? Ano bang electrical provider ng Iligan? Irico, ano ba 'yan? What's the electrical provider in Iligan? Sa Cagayan de Oro, we have Sipalco. In Manila, they have the Meralco. What's in Iligan? Anong tawag sa Iligan?
ILPI, sir. ILPI.
Sa to, ano?
LPI, sir.
ILTI. Okay. So that's the what we call yung ginagamit sa ILTI, no? Yung ginagamit nila na poste. Kung makikita nyo, kahoy yan, kahit kahoy yan, hindi yan inaanay kasi dumadaan yan sa tinatawag na kindling temperature or kindling process. Then the other one is what we call the fire point. So if we say fire point is the lowest temperature of a liquid in an open container. Okay. So the which vapors are evolved from fast enough to support the combustion. Again, kung ang kahoy ay may treatment, let's say, ano ba yan sir? May treatment, meaning nilagyan ng may pintura, ano pa, yung kahoy may gasolina. So, pag nandun yun sa kahoy, mas mabilis siyang masunog. Kaya yun tinatawag natin na fire point, no? Fire point. Then the other one is what we call the flash point. So the flash point is the temperature of which the flammable liquid forms a vapor. So kung ang vapor na lumalabas ay mas magaan, madali niyang dakpin si heat. Kaya yung flash point niya is mabilis, no? Mabilis. Kukunin niya yung apoy, parang dadakpin niya para makaroon siya ng sunog or ng apoy, no? Or ng flame, no? So that is what we call the flash point. Now another questions, what do we call in the study of fires changes whereby the heat is absorbed before a reaction takes place? You can remember this. The correct answer is letter A, endothermic process. This is the study of fires whereby changes of heat is absorbed before the reaction takes place. So, and the correct answer is endothermic reaction. Okay. So, take note on that. Endothermic, it is where changes whereby energy is absorbed. Okay. Energy is absorbed, endothermic. If we say exothermic, the energy is released. If we say oxidation, it is a chemical change that is exothermic. If we say exothermic, ito yung mga material like fuel, oxidizing agent that react, no, that react in the process of combustion. Then we have the flame. Ano ba yung flame? Ang flame are incandescent. Meaning, say incandescent, this is bright, yellow bright, bluish color. Yan, gases. It is a combustion product and a manifestation of fire when it is gas phase combustion. So another question here. Blank is energy in motion. What is your answer? Correct answer is letter D. Heat is energy in motion. Kasi heat can travel, heat can transfer, heat can transport in a form of wave, no? So lalo na, so if you could still remember yung example ko kanina, kung ang sunog nangyari pag umaga, mas madali yung madama yung ibang bahay kasi malakas ang hangin pag umaga kaysa gabi. Okay? Pero kahit na wala masyadong di masyadong mahangin, heat can also travel. So depending on the type of material used. So pag ang bahay is gawa sa concrete, ang bahay gawa sa kahoy, mas mabilis masunog. Kahit concrete masunog din. Basta may treatment, halimbawa may pintura, ano pa yan, may mga nilagyan ng mga chemical sa semento. Then the product of combustions, we have the fire gases, the flame, the heat, and the smoke. So take note on that. Fire gases, we say fire gases, it is a chemical composition of the fuel. While the flame naman is the luminous body of a burning gas. Ang heat naman is a form of energy generated being transferred or by means of transmission from one source to the other source. So halimbawa, I'll give you an example. Kahit humawak ka sa kutsara at saka yung niluluto mo, yung kutsara lang ang dinidip mo sa niluluto mo, kahit hindi ka nakadirect nakadirect nakahawak sa niluluto mo, but gumamit ka ng kutsara, yung metal kasi madali yang mag-transfer or mag-transport ng heat from one point to the other point. Okay? So then we have the smoke. What is a smoke? Is a visible product of incomplete combustion. If you say incomplete combustion, hindi siya nasusunog lahat. Mayroon pang natira. Kaya mayroong white, gray, bluish. Yun. So the smoke is a product of incomplete combustion. Okay. So fire gases, as a result of combustion, the following are being produced. We have carbon dioxide, no? Or carbon oxide. We have hydrogen gas, nitrogen, and other poisonous gases. So this is what I'm telling you. In fire cases, lalo na pag may biktima, ang normally na nangyayari dyan, namamatay ang tao, hindi dahil sa siya ay nasunog. It's because of the inhalation of the poisonous gases or the smoke. Ito yung mga component niyan. Ito yung tatlo, yung mga component niyan, no? So if you will try to digest itong tatlong to, o ito lang, kahit itong sa baba lang to, can kill a person. Can kill a person. Enough to kill an individual. Okay. Yung flame naman, what is a flame? Flame is a luminous, it is non-luminous when it comes to color. So if you say luminous, masyado siyang makintab, masyado siyang maliwanag. We say non-luminous, hindi siya masyadong maliwanag. Premix kasi yung flame kasi pwede yang mangyayari kahit nagsusurvive pa rin yung flame kahit premix siya. Ibig sabihin yung oxygen or yung vapor nagko-combine sa heat, no? Kahit hindi direct, no? Then we have diffuse as to the air mixture, no? Then we have the laminar. If we say laminar, yung smoothness niya, as to smoothness, hindi masyadong mas plain ang flame niya pag laminar flame siya. Ito yung mga, for example, ito yung mga kandila, yung mga burnwood, yan. Yan say mga burnwood, yung mga normal lang ginagawa natin, panggatong. Laminar yan. Yung flame niya is smooth. Yung turbulent naman, ito yung product, ito yung byproduct ng pressure. So halimbawa, give you an example, yung sa LPG na ginagamit natin, di ba? Yung product ng flame niya is turbulent kasi may pressure. Yan. Okay? Then another question, the kind of flame that is disturbed and thus produce rugged edges rather than being smooth is called? Oh, ito. What's the answer of this? Kasasabi ko lang. What's your answer? Rugged, ha? The keyword there is rugged edges. Oh, it comes to smoothness to class. Smoothness ang pinag-uusapan natin. What is your answer?
Turbulent flame.
Okay, very good. No, nakikinig. Very good. Turbulent flame yan. Okay. Next. The best reason why luminous flame is colored orange-red is due to, yan. Another, kasasabi ko lang. Bakit may orange-red? Bakit orange? Bakit yellowish? Yan. What's the answer?
A, sir.
Okay. A ba? Titingnan natin. Very good. Nakikinig. Okay. Stages of burning. Incipient phase, free burning phase, and then the smoldering phase. Yung incipient phase class is what we call the beginning phase. Normally naman, lahat ng apoy nagsisimula sa beginning phase or stage or the incipient phase. Bago ang malaking sunog, meron mo nang maliit na apoy. When there is smoke, there's fire. Now, once these are already let's say these are already taken, nagawa na to. The second phase is what we call the free burning phase. Ano ba yung free burning phase class? It is a stage where the material structures are burning in the presence of adequate oxygen supply. Take note, adequate. Ang kailangan lang niya ng apoy para maka-create siya ng flame, kailangan niya ng 16% ng oxygen. Kahit nasa loob. Okay. Once free burning phase comes in, the last phase is what we call the smoldering phase. Ano ba yung smoldering phase? Ito na yung the point where the flame ceases. Ano ba yung ceases? Na mamatay na po yung apoy. Kasi totally burnt or totally consume na niya yung fuel source. Okay? So, what is being left is the dense smoke and heat. But remember, kaya nga in the case of the firefighter, kailangan nilang siguraduhin na wala nang ignition point na mangyayari ulit. Kasi normally kasi ang kanila lang napapatay yung apoy. Pero yung baga sa loob hindi pa. Kaya there's still a chance that it will be reignited. Okay. So this is another board question. The fireman has noticed an accelerated burning process, estimated a temperature of about 800 to 1000 degree Fahrenheit. So if we say Fahrenheit, this is the degree of heat, no? So at the base of the fire in the burning house. This observation leads to the conclusion that the fire is in its what stage class? Kasasabi ko lang. Hello, are you still there?
Free burning, sir.
Free burning ba? The correct answer is letter B. Okay, correct. Free burning. Okay, so it means that the fire is already free burning, meaning the term there, the fire can sustain on its own kasi tapos na yung initial stage. So, in other words, the three elements are already present. Meaning already present, it's not yet consumed. It's still to be consumed. Oh, meron na siyang panggatong, meron pang fuel source, meron pa siyang oxygen, meron pa siyang heat, exact amount of heat. Ang heat na probably it is estimated from 800 to 1,000 degree Fahrenheit at the base of the fire. Sobrang init nito, class, no? Okay, next. Ayan. So to give you to deepen your understanding about the stages of fire, yung sa kaliwa nyo is what we call the incipient stage. Ano ba yung incipient stage? Oh, ito yung the beginning of the fire. Normally, the fire starts, in this example, at the ground floor, for example, no? Incipient. Now, at this stage, we can still control the fire at this stage. If you have that fire extinguisher, if you have that cloth, kahit yung gagamitin natin yung mga thick cloth soak in water, effective 'yan. Or yung mga sanding. O di ba? Yung sand pag wala tayong fire extinguisher kasi masyadong mahal, you can use the sanding or the soil. O yung tubig, but ingat-ingat lang baka may electrical charges diyan. Okay? Now, from this incipient stage, notice that there are already carbon dioxide and carbon oxide and other substances that are already or vapors that are already released. Take note of the term release due to the incipient stage. So ano ba yung na-release, sir? Bakit na-release yan? Kasi nanggaling yan sa mga material or product na kinakain nila. O di ba? So nandiyan na yan sa itaas na parte ng bahay. Now, the free burning stage occurs when the fire can sustain on its own. Dito sa incipient stage, hindi pa siya makasustain. Kailangan pa niya ng complete temperature. Kailangan pa niya ng suporta ni temperature. Kailangan pa may spark pa always. Oh. Now, pag nasa free burning stage na siya, hindi na niya kailangan ng spark, hindi niya kailangan ng heat source. Ibig sabihin, kaya na niyang mabuhay ng kanyang sarili as long as the three elements are there. Now, notice also that the fire starts to grow from the ground to the upper part of the house. Now, notice also that the heat already transferred to the other part or the other floor of the house. And that is the free burning stage. Take note, heat can travel. There is a principle, the cold air goes down and the warm air goes up. Do you agree with me? Maniwala ba kayo sa akin ng principle na cold air goes down, warm air goes up? Do you agree? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Oh. Bakit yan,
Yes,
sir?
sir.
Oh. I'll give you an idea. Lahat naman kayo nakatira ngayon sa Iligan City. Ako nasa Cagayan de Oro. Bakit kaya ang Iligan at Cagayan hindi masyadong inuulan paghapon? Bakit kaya yung, let us say, nearby municipality ng Iligan, si Lanao del Norte, si Misamis Oriental, every afternoon nagkakaroon ng ulan. Now, this is the principle. Kasi yung mga nasa syudad kasi, pag nakatira ka sa syudad, maraming init factor. Nanggaling sa jeep, nanggaling sa kotse, nanggaling sa bahay, nanggaling sa aircon, nanggaling sa lahat ng bagay. Now, this warm air will travel upward. It creates the cloud. Sipsipin na yung tubig galing sa dagat. But remember, these cloud formations will be swept away from because of the air from the kahit nasa ibabaw ng syudad yung cloud formation niya, nasiswept yan dahil sa hangin. Kaya napupunta si cloud doon sa mga nearby municipality. Doon siya umuulan. Oh, kasi init kasi nagbibigay ng init yung mga sasakyan, lahat ng 'yon. So haven't you noticed that? No? Now, go back to our discussion. So sa free burning stage niya, as I've said, independent. Hindi na niya kailangan ng continuous heat source, continuous power source, also or so whatever. Ang next stage na kanyang gagawin is what we call the smoldering stage. Ano ba yung smoldering stage? Lahat ng floor, lahat ng mga bagay na andyan sa kanyang dinadaanan, kinakain na niya. O, di ba? As you notice, in the center, mayroon pang second floor. Halimbawa, let us say, pagpalagay natin na yung second floor ay gawa sa kahoy. And on the smoldering stage, those are already collapsed. No? And turn into a baga na, or let's say kuha na, let us say ano bang term niyan, no? So that's the point there, no? So these are the stages of burning. First, we have the incipient stage. Second is we have the free burning stage, and third we have the smoldering stage. So at this point, class, you could not do something to your house or home. So you can do something pag nasa incipient stage pa siya. Kahit basta hindi pa siya no? Hindi pa siya mas malaki. Kasi yung anyway, it will takes only seconds or minutes or 1 or 2 minutes for a flame to grow or to double its size. Okay? Do you understand? Naintindihan?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, the fuels or combustible materials, tutukan natin muna ito. Ano ba yung fuel? Ang fuel naman is a matter that exists in 3 physical states. Tatlong source ng fuel. It could be a solid, it could be a liquid, or it could be a gas. If it is a solid, ang mangyari niyan, it's either magmi-melt yan or masusunog yan. If it is a solid, it melts to become a liquid. Kung halimbawa, plastic, ansa pa, kahit mga metal, for example. And this may vaporize and become gases. So, kasi, kahit metal yan, meron pa rin yung vapor. No? Take note on that. No? Pag ang metal nasusunog, magdi-deform. Yung concrete naman, halimbawa semento, pag nasusunog yan, mawawala yung strength niya. Kaya mag-crack yan. No? Kaya kung mapapansin nyo, pag ang bahay na gawa sa konkreto, pag nasusunog, ay hindi na talaga ina-advise na patayuan ulit. Kailangan gibain talaga. Kasi yung strength na niya, lumabas na kasi, nagwi-weaken na yung structure. No. The basic rule is that at high enough temperature, all fuels can be converted into gases. Yes, do you agree? All fuels converted into a gases. Totoo yan. Kahit anong klaseng fuel source pa yan. TV, refrigerator, aircon, sapatos, kahit yung wall natin na chemically treated, ayun, masusunog pa rin yan. No? At each of the physical state exhibits different physical and chemical properties. Okay. So, another question. Which of the following does not fall under Class A fire? I know you are so good on this. Does not fall under Class A fire. Ano ba yung hindi Class A fire dito? A, B, C, or D? What's your answer, class? Hello, class? They're still there?
B.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Oo. O, parang natutulog na siguro kayo, no? Okay. So, what's your... Oh, the correct answer is the exploding gas. Diba? Take note. Class A fires composed of fire coming from the wood, the paper, the hay. Oh, diba? So, those are what we call Class A fires. Exploding gas is not a Class A fires. Nipa hot is a Class A fires. None of this is a Class A fires. It's not a choice actually. Then forest fire is a Class A fire. So all the things that are common are what we call Class A fire. Now, each of the physical state exhibit different physical properties. The solid, the liquid, and gas. Take note, may ibang-iba ang kanilang physical properties. Sa solid kasi, yung molecules niya are closely packed, no? Say closely, dikit-dikit. Pag liquid naman, loose. Pag gas naman, free. Oh. So take note on that. Ito yung mga molecule niya, yung mga type, yung molecules are kuan niya, content ng property. Okay, classification of fuels. We have the class A fuels are those that are what? Organic substance such as wood or wood-based products. So it could be synthetic or inorganic or material like rubber, leather, and plastic product. Another is what we call the Class B fuel. If we say Class B fuel, these are flammable liquids such as the alcohol, acidic solution, oil, liquid petroleum, and others. And we have also the Class C fuels. So these are normally fire resistant kasi kuanto sila mga metal. But then again, kahit metal yan, mayroon pa rin yang mayroon pa ring chance yan na masusunog, no? So, halimbawa yung mga electrical wiring kasi yung mga electrical wiring naman mayroon naman yang rubber, no? And then electrical appliances. Then we have the class D fuel. So yung class D fuel, these are all what? Elements or substances. Okay. So example of these are magnesium, titanium, zirconium, sodium, and potassium. Okay, another board question. What is the term used to refer to organic materials like wood, garbage, animal manure that can be used to produce energy? Oh, ano ba yung tawag niyan? Is it plastic, biomass, coal, or fossils? So the correct answer is letter B. It's a biomass. Kasi yung wood, garbage, at saka animal manure or manure can become a biomass. If we say biomass, can be a form of fertilizer, no? Magagamit 'yan, no? So, another thing. Okay, what do we call the plastic fuel that contains nitrocellulose? So, is it A, B, C, D, or C or D? So, the correct answer is letter A, pyroxylene. Pyroxylene. Okay. So, groups of solid fuels, we have the biomass. If we say biomass, these are organic matters. If we say fabric, textile or textile is a fiber of a very fine thin strand. Say very fine meaning masyadong manipis. Madali lang siya masunog. Okay? The other one is what we call plastics. So if we say plastics, these are ordinary fuels except materials that contains cellulose nitrate. Cellulose nitrate. And the other one, we have the coal. So coal is a black combustible mineral solid resulting from partial decomposition. So yung mga uling, isang example ay isang halimbawa ng coal, yung ginagamit natin pang pang inihaw, yan, pang grill, yan. Then we have also the peat. Ano ba yung peat? Is a partially decayed plant matter found in swamps, called bugs, and is used to fuel chiefly in areas where coal and oil are scarce. So yung peat, yung mga sa ilalim ng mga kahoy, kakahuyan or mga damuhan, may mga patay diyan na mga plant, and that is used by in other country as their source of fuel. Okay. We have common fuels. We have bulky, finely divided, and dust. So under bulky, may apat yan. And we have coal, wood, wax, grease. And then finely divided naman, if we say finely divided, may apat din yan. We have plastic, paper, cork, leather. Pag dust naman, we have sawdust, sugar, grain, and others. So if we mention the term pyrolyzable solid fuel, we are referring to an ordinary accepted combustibles like the paper, wood, and others. So, what is being released there is the vapor. So, as I've said, vapor ang kinakain po ng fuel because of combustions. Thereby release their chemical decomposition support the flaming combustion. Then we have the pyrolyzable, non-pyrolyzable solid fuel. These are type of solid fuels that are difficult to to ignite. So common example is charcoal. Yung charcoal kasi class, kailangan mo pang bigyan ulit ng amount ng heat para mag-reignite siya, no? So sa charcoal kasi naging kuan na siya, no? Na-release na yung vapor niya. Kaya kailangan niya ng wala na siyang vapor, wala na siyang tubig. So kailangan na lang niya ng heat. Oh. So no vapors are released. The glowing combustions that result is an example of gas to solid reactions. So when the charcoal turns into a reddish color, it is now called an ember. Ember. Take note on that class, no? The term is ember. E-M-B-E-R. Ember. So, yung ember, kung sa Bisaya pa, baga. Okay. So characteristics of fuel, we have solids. So these have definite volume and shape, of course. Okay, the solid class, in order to combustion to occur, it must reach the ignition temperature. So, okay, the other one is what we call the liquid. It assumes shape when it is inside a container. So, halimbawa sa LPG, sa spray, so whatever. So, it has definite volume. Ibig sabihin, mapupuno niya kasi mayroon siyang weight at saka mayroon siyang size. No? Kahit wala siyang size, mayroon siyang weight kasi eh. Okay? Mayroon kasi siyang vapor density. No? Then, like a solid, in order for combustion to occur, sufficient heat must be present to vaporize it. Okay. Then, the other one, we have the groups of flammable liquid. So if you could still remember, we have class A liquid, we have class B liquid, and we have class 1, class C liquid. So if you say class A, ang kanilang flash point nila is below, take note, below 22.8 degrees centigrade. Pag sinabi namang class B, hindi bababa, below 22.8 pa rin, pero ang kanilang boiling point is nasa 37.8. Kapareho pa rin ng class A. Yung class C naman, yung kanilang flash point is at or above. Take note at or above the 22.8 degrees centigrade and below 37 and 38 degree centigrade. So, paano ba sila nagkaka-diferensya? Yung iba, yung kanilang boiling point is at or above, while yung iba naman is below your the boiling point. Okay? Okay. Let us proceed. What is the flash point of a liquid? Kasasabi ko lang kanina. So the answer is letter C. Are you still there, class? Buhay pa ba kayo?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. So tune in lang, no? I'm sure some of you already sleepy. Pero kasi yung oras na to, karaniwan kasi natutulog sa oras na to yung matatanda, no? Iwan ko lang kung sino matanda yan sa mga classmate nyo. Baka nakabuka na yung baba, nakalawit-laway na, nakalawit dila na. Okay. But anyways, let us continue. 79 degrees Celsius, no? Letter C is the correct answer. Okay. The flash point of a liquid. Yung flash point ng liquid, class, nasa ang lowest temperature liquid, okay, at which sufficient vapor is given off to form a ignitable mixture with air near the surface of the liquid. Yung flash point niya is nasa 79 degrees centigrade or Celsius. Celsius, ha? Okay. So, another thing, common liquid fuels. So, ito yun. So, gasoline, lacquer thinner, kerosene, olive oil, turpentine, alcohol, liver oil, paint, varnish, and others. Now, another thing, what kind of fuel has no different shape or volume? So, the answer is very obvious. Gas. Kasi si gas, ang wala si gas is kanyang shape at saka yung volume. Okay, another. Gas has no definite shape, correct? And assumes the shape of the volume of its container, correct? The gas will spread and eventually equalize its distribution throughout a fixed room or container. Correct. Combustion in its state needs to heating and only requires the proper mixture of oxygen and an ignition source. That is all correct. Now, facts about gases. So common gas fuels, these are the following. We have propane, natural gas, butane, hydrogen, acetylene, and the carbon monoxide. Now, let's talk naman the oxygen, or also known as the oxidizing agent. So in order to a fire to occur, the rapid oxidation reaction must take place. So of course, no, we say rapid oxidation, rapid, very fast, no? Okay. So a fuel must be present and mixed with oxygen to produce heat. That's true, very true. Okay? Kailangan niya ng oxygen at saka ni fuel at saka ni heat. Kailangan ni oxygen ng fuel at saka ni heat. Then, the fire is an exothermic. If we say exothermic class, it releases the heat coming from the object. So, kaya nga naluluto yung mga pagkain natin kasi that is an example of exothermic. Pag sinabi namang endothermic, it receives the heat coming from the burning object. Kaya yung ibang bahay na dadamay pag may sunog kasi endothermic. Okay. Endothermic meaning nire-receive nila yung init. Okay. Kahit naman siguro tao, kahit tayo, no, nare-receive natin yung init. Pero meron naman tayong exothermic, lalo na pag pinapawisan, nag-exercise, yan, exothermic yan. Okay. Air has approximately blank percent of oxygen, which is also needed amount to begin reacting with fuel. So how many percent, class? The answer is letter D. Kailangan lang ng 21% ng oxygen para magkaroon ng reaction. Okay. So, in air, the air we breathe contains 21% of oxygen. That's true. That is a fact. No, this is normally considered as an ample amount of oxygen to begin reacting with the fuel. If the level of oxygen drops below 16%, the burning process becomes slow. That's true. That's a fact. Now, it's a fuel is if a fuel is present in oxygen in rich atmosphere, the reaction will become more vigorous and the combustion process will be accelerated, and that is a fact. So, pag maraming oxygen sa paligid, mas vigorous ang process ng combustion. Okay, ibig sabihin ng vigorous, mas matindi, no? Okay. Now we have flammable limits. So if you say flammable limits, this is the mixture of flammable gases or vapors with air will combust only when there are within particular ranges of concentration. So the ratio of the gas or vapor to air is called its flammable or explosive limit. Okay. Flammable limits are divided into three areas. We have lower flammable limit, we have upper flammable limit, and we have the ideal stoichiometric. So take note on it. Ideal or stoichiometric. Okay. Moving in. Okay. So let's jump to these questions. Okay, question. What is called the behavior of the fire where fireball may be produces? Fireball, ha? So, what do you still remember among these? What's your answer? Hello, class. Are you still there?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What? Can you pick a choice of your answer? What could be the correct answer, class?
B, sir.
Flash fire, sir. Flash fire.
Flash fire. Okay, let us validate your answer. The correct answer is letter B, flash over. So, yung makikita natin sa sunog ba, kung nakakita na ba kayo ng sunog? Bahay. Yung ibang sunog yung nakikita nyo paggabi, ha? Yung bahay na susunog. Oo.
Yes, sir.
Lalo na pag umaga or let's say very evident to paggabi kasi may darkness. Very very visible yung flame. Yung flashover kasi class, nangyayari yan kapag naghahalo na si oxygen at saka si fuel source at saka matindi na yung heat or temperature niya. Gumugulong na yan parang bola. O sa atin pa, para siyang fireball. O, gumugulong na yan, na reddish yellow, yellow orange or bluish, parang kuan na siya, lumulubo parang bola na siya. So, that is what we call the flashover, no? Okay. So, what are the dangerous behavior of fire? If we say dangerous behavior of fire, we're talking about here, one is backdraft, and the other is flashover. If we say backdraft, this is what I'm talking about. This claims a lot of life in the firefighters, for the firefighters. Kasi yung type ng behavior ng fire na ito ay very sudden, meaning para siyang magnanakaw, rapid, violente pa, and the burning of heated gas in a confined area occurs in a form of explosion. So this is the saddest part kasi pumuputok siya para siyang mayroong granada sa loob or may mga IED sa loob, no? So, ang nangyayari kasi ito, there is a immediate, no? So there is an immediate introduction of the oxygen in the confined surface or area. So ibig sabihin, kapag closed area yan, no, sarado, bigla mong binuksan, ito yung mangyayari, backdraft. Puputok yan, no, puputok yan. The other one is what we call the flashover. So if we say a flashover, it is the sudden ignition of accumulated radical gases produced when there is an incomplete combustion. So, or fuels. So again, sudden naman, just like backdraft, sudden ignition, ibig sabihin, biglang lumiyab, no? Oh, kasi accumulate yung radical gases. Ang kulang kasi nito, class, is mayroon na siyang temperature, mayroon na siyang heat, mayroon na rin siyang fuel, mayroon na rin siyang, let us say, oxygen, pero ang problema lang ay hindi po kompleto ang kanyang combustion. Incomplete combustion, meaning to say, yung vapor lang niya ang lumalabas. Vapor lang. Yung kuan lang, yung smoke, iba yung smoke, iba yung vapor. Oh, yung vapor lang niya ang lumalabas. So this is very dangerous on the part, or risky on the part of the firefighter. Or kahit hindi firefighter, kahit naman sino, no? Basta hindi alam yung flashover at saka backdraft. And then we have the bite back. What is a bite back? It is a fatal condition that takes place when the fire resists extinguishment operations and becomes stronger and bigger instead. Oh, kaya nga, if you could still remember, may mga type of chemicals being used or applied or being added in the fire truck or in the water of the fire truck. Kasi may ibang, kasi lalo na kasi yung pag nirerespondihan nila, planta na susunog. Halimbawa, yung Global Steel Corporation na susunog. Oh, yung Gaisano Mall na susunog. O yung Gaisano Iligan na susunog, for example. O, di ba? Or yung gasoline station na susunog. Yung gagamitin na extinguisher nila ay hindi normal na extinguisher or normal na material. Hindi tubig lang. Kailangan talaga may mga halo. Halimbawa, I'll give you another idea, class, yung mga nasa airport. I'm sure all of you have already experienced in an airport. Sa mga eroplano, pag ang eroplano ay nagka-emergency, may sunog at saka biglang nag-emergency landing, yung mga magre-respond din yan ay yung mga firefighter din. Pero yung kanilang mga fire truck, ang laman yan is not an ordinary type of water. It composes a foam. May mga foam yan. Kasi, again, may mga issue kasi ng mga bite back eh. Bite back. Ano ba yung bite back, sir? Nagre-resist, lumalaban yung kahit binumbahan tubig. Oh. Pag the more tubig, mo yung tubig, lumalaki yung apoy. Lumalaki yung apoy. Kasi bakit yan nangyayari? It's because when you induce a fire into a fire, may kasama niyang hangin. Kasi pressure yan eh. May pressure yan and it gives, again, it added the fuel of the fire or on the flame rather. So I hope you understand the matter, what I am trying to refer to. Then we have the flash fire. The flash fire is better known as the dust explosion. So this may happen when the metal post that is completely covered with dust is going to be hit by lightning. Now take note, going to be hit by the lightning. The dust particles covering the metal burn simultaneously creating a violent chemical reactions that produce the very bright flash followed by an explosion. So ang flash fire nangyayari kapag ang isang metal, halimbawa, or hindi kailangan metal post, basta metal siya. Tapos biglang biglang na-hit ng lightning. Oh, biglang may lightning, na-struck ng lightning yung metal. Eventually the metal will create a violent chemical reactions that produces a very bright flash followed by an explosion. Kaya nga class, now it is very advisable if you try to deepen the matter. Kung halimbawa nagsasaka kayo sa bukid, no? At tapos bigla kayong inulan, no? Biglang sumama yung panahon. Normally ang ginagawa ng tao, doon siya nagpapasilong sa kahoy. And that is very dangerous. Lalo na pag ang sama talaga ng panahon, ibig sabihin maitim talaga yung langit at saka yung lightning, no? Yung lightning is very very evident, no? Now, careful kayo sa mga area na sa puno, basta puno kasi yung puno kasi mataas. Normally pag mataas na bagay yan, madali yang ma-attract ng mga lightning. Kaya once the heat is hit by a lightning, eventually lahat ng tao diyan mamamatay sa paligid ng puno. And that is very true. Now, what will you do kung may mga ganyang sitwasyon? The safest thing to do is just only to duck and cover of your own. Kasi pag nasa ground ka kasi at saka open air ka, hindi yan na masyadong na-attract yung lightning. So, you can duck, you can cover, you can just sit down and wait. Pero, malas lang talaga pag na-hit ka pa rin ng lightning. Okay. So, heat energy in motion. So, heat energy possesses the fuel due to its molecular activity. That's very evident. This heat energy has to be exceed in a minimum level. The measurement of heat intensity is called temperature. The heating rate is measured to, take note on this, kilojoules, no? Kilojoules, kilojoules, no? Or abbreviated term is kJ. Okay. FCKR. So, board question. Another question. 100 degrees centigrade is the equivalent to blank Fahrenheit. How many degree Fahrenheit? So, the answer is letter A, 212 degree Fahrenheit. Okay, so this is the typical temperature of the matter, no? If it is a water boil, so yung degree centigrade niya at saka degree Fahrenheit niya magkaiba. Pag hot bath, body temperature, beach weather, room temperature, cold day, freezing point. Say freezing point is 0 talaga. Magsimula tayo sa 0. Below 0 is it's again kuan na siya, no? sub-zero na siya yan. Now, very cold day, minus degree, degree centigrade. And then extremely cold day, ayan. So sa Pilipinas, masyado tayong pinagpala kasi dito sa Mindanao, yan, hindi natin masyado nararamdaman yung mga extreme, yung mga below freezing temperature, yun, yung mga freezing point. Okay. So use this formula, degree Fahrenheit to degree centigrade. So deduct 32, then multiply by 5, then divide by 9. That is the formula in how to convert the degree Fahrenheit to centigrade. From degree centigrade to degree Fahrenheit naman, you multiply by 9, then divide by 5, then add 32. So that's how to convert. So let's move into the next. We have when the heat source which provided a destructive fire is from cooking appliances that involves combustible cooking media such as vegetables or animal oil. The class of fire is considered as this is your key part. Vegetable or animal oil. What's the answer? The correct answer is letter K, letter A, class K fire. Okay. So yung heat sources naman natin can be categorized into mechanical, chemical, electrical, compressed, natural, or nuclear. So yung hindi lang masyadong familiar dito ang ating itatackle, no? So sa nuclear kasi, heat energy is produced when the atomic particles are split and fused. Yan. So another question, ilang mga 100 items ata to. So we are still 27. Which of these best describe conduction? So what is conduction, class? The correct answer is letter C. Conduction is the transfer of heat through solid material or heat transfer through solid material. Okay, so halimbawa, one good example of this is cooking. Yung mga conventional cooking. So these are the types of transmission of heat. May tinatawag tayo na conduction, radiation, or convection. And then the other one is flame or direct contact. If we say conduction, the transmission of heat is through an object or conductor. So ano ba yung object or conductor? So halimbawa yung spoon or yung yung spoon, no, yung kutsara na hinahawakan mo, nilagay mo sa apoy, eventually yung kutsara uminit yan. And that is conduction. So radiation for heat from a heated or burning source. Convection, on the other hand, is the transmission of heat by moving currents of liquid or gases. Okay. So normally yung radiation, class, heat travels in a form of wave. Yung heat wave kasi lumalabas yan pag may apoy, no? So the heat wave causes the other object or building to catch with fire. Then we have the direct contact. So direct contact is yun talaga, nilagay mo sa lutuan yung material. So this is an example of radiation. So as you notice, itong building sa kaliwa ang nasusunog at saka may heat wave na lumalabas. So the heat wave or the radiant heat causes the fire to transfer to the other side of the building. So it's because of the heat wave. Lalo na pag malakas ang hangin. O pag kahit man hindi malakas ang hangin, as long as yung distansya ng dalawang object, yung dalawang lugar is not so really long, will also create fire. Okay. So conduction, on the other hand, the transmission of heat in a form of through conduction of or heat flow, no? through a material. So for example, in this example, as you notice in an object, now the heat conducts from the warmer to the cooler side of the window of the molecules. Okay, so this is an example, no? Okay, so another, convection. So heat flow via air movement. Yan. So if this is the window, this is the window of the house, yung heat niya, it's either turns back outside or turns back from inside. Okay? So ito yung mangyayari ng heat wave niya. Halimbawa, yung init sa labas ng bahay hindi makapasok dahil mayroon tayong tinatawag na convection. Pero yung convection kasi kahit nasa labas, pupunta pa rin yan sa mga surfaces, no? Okay. Ito naman yung direct flame contact. So as you notice sa direct flame contact talaga, class, you could there is a direct, no? There is an immense exhaustion of the material in the flame source. So makikita mo talaga masusunog 'yan. Okay? Okay, another board question in the study of fire technology, fire tetrahedron rather, which is called the fourth element of fire. Fourth element of fire. So the correct answer is letter C, the chemical chain reaction. Okay. So this is now the explanation. The chemical chain reaction, or also known as the uninhibited chemical chain reactions. Okay, so let's jump into it. So this is the fire life cycle. Normally, magsisimula yan dito sa heat input. So dito banda. Hello class, are you still there, class?
Sir.
Sir, sir.
Yeah, okay, very good. Okay, so I'm just checking, baka nawala na yung linya ko, ako na lang ang magsasalita, no? Okay, so we have the heat input. So dito magsisimula yan sa heat input. Now, ang heat input, yung mga sources niya, it could be chemical, mechanical, electrical, or whatever. Or it could be a direct flame source. So once it is present, it will then turns into a pyrolysis. So pyrolysis. So through pyrolysis, it will then mix into the fuel source. So that's the second, number 2. Kailangan niya ng fuel source. Once fuel source are part of the element, it will then turn into an air source. So kailangan niya ng air o yung oxygen. Yung oxygen kasi, as I've said, are present in the surrounding that eventually mix or say joins or enjoins in the process of chemical chain reaction. Okay? Then once the air is already introduced, the next thing to happen is the proper proportioning or the fourth phase, no? Okay? So the proper proportioning and then eventually turn into a mixing. So from mixing, it eventually turns into an ignition continuity. So once mixing is yung mga, do not be confused, is the chemical chain reaction. So pag meron na, of course, meron na tayong makikita dito na apoy ignition. So dito pa lang sa number 3, meron ng apoy makikita natin once these 3 elements are already combined. So this is the most critical period of the fire, no? Meaning the fire can survive on its own. So it's no longer dependent from other sources. So once this ignition continuity occurs, the next thing is the oxidation stops when all the sources are consumed. So oxidation, mawala na lang yung hangin pag wala na yung fuel source at saka yung fuel source talaga. Yung heat source naman is always there. It's also when there is still a fuel source. So this is the life cycle of a fire. Okay, factors affecting the burning process. We have the, okay, what is called the total quantity of combustible contents of a building space or fire area, including interior finish, which can totally affect the combustion process. Is it A, B, C, or D? What is your answer? The answer is fuel load. So fuel load kasi class, it is the no the quantity of combustible content. So yung mga kasi tao mahilig kasi tayo magpapaganda ng ating bahay. Binalagyan natin ng pintura, lahat ng bagay, meaning naka-finish 'yan, no? Hindi tayo hindi tayo kontento, kailangan talaga pagandahin, lagyan ng mga pintura. So that is what we call the fuel load. Okay. So fuel load is the total quantity of combustible contents of a building space or fire area, including interior, finish, and trim expressed in heat units or equivalent to weight of the wood. Okay. So may phrase dito, a perpetrator attempted to accelerate fire spread and burning by moving combustible materials into a fire area. Okay. So the fire growth can be controlled by these things, no? One is physical chemical properties, fuel condition, fuel configuration, and compartmentation ventilation. Okay? So another question. Generally, when the moisture content of the fuel is above 15%, ignition is difficult to and requires heat and in a prolonged period of time. What is being described? A, B, C, or D? So the correct answer is letter C, fuel condition. So this is what is being described. Okay. So fuel condition class occurs when the moisture content of fuel and its equilibrium point. So fuel when exposed to air will become equilibrium with the air and have some moisture content as the air. Okay, so now let's jump into this. Okay. Now, from this observations class, what can you see in this picture? What can you derive from it? Do you think how the time, no? Do you think how many minutes does it requires for an fire to double or triple its size? Mga ilang minuto kaya yan o segundo sa tingin nyo?
3 minutes, sir.
30 minutes.
30 minutes?
3 minutes, sir. 3 minutes.
3 minutes? Okay. Some says 30, some says 3 minutes. Now, pag sinabi ko ba sa inyo in just a matter of 3.5 minutes, do you agree with me that the fire already double or triple its size? Take note on this size. I'm talking about this size here. Yan. So that is the size of the fire. In just a matter of 3 to 4 minutes, it can double its size. It's just only an experiment class. Kaya nga class, I'm stressing on the following. It is important the responding time or the time respond of a firefighter, fire to come in is very crucial. No? Mula sa pagtawag, papunta sa pag-receive, papunta sa pag-react, papunta sa pag-drive, papunta sa patunguhan kung saan yung sunog. Do you think they can save the house? Kung halimbawa kung umabot na ang mga firefighter is nasa 30 minutes na, do you think they can save the house? That the one class where
Dili na, sir.
Dili na, di ba? So usually, lalo na pag ang bahay is gawa sa light material, wala na talaga. Lalo na pag light material, nako, yung bahay, yung bubong is Talking about yung bubong, yung no, yung bubong is gawa lang sa nipa, no, di ba? Yung kanyang wall is gawa lang sa ano, tabla or it as a ratan or amakan. So wala na talaga. In just a matter of minutes, pag hindi naka-responde ng maaga ang taga fire department ay talaga wala na maabutan. Okay? So this picture also depicts an example would be a fire starting on an armchair. Sa armchair nangyari. Of a chair versus starting at the bottom of the chair. So ito yun. So the fire burns upward and it will progress further if the fuel is above it, especially in its earlier stage. So this is just only an experiment. Kasi yung material kasi yung kinakain, yung fuel kasi ng kinakain ng fire is mayroon siyang density. Magmamatter yan sa kanyang density at saka heat capacity. Okay? So, if you say heat capacity, the amount of heat energy required to change the material temperature by 1 degree. So, kung mapapansin nyo, pag malapad, mas makapal, mas matagal, masunog. Pero pag mas manipis, saka payat, madali lang yang masunog. So this is the effect of time required to transfer the heat. Okay. So we have also the thermal conductivity kasi may mga material kasi na hindi masyadong attractive sa apoy, no? And then meron tayong tinatawag na heat loss. So this is when it comes to thermal insulation between two materials is increased, no? So thermal properties of fuel. So let's keep on this. So another board question. The abnormal decomposition of matter through fire is called letter C, thermal imbalance. So take note on that, thermal imbalance. Another question. During the stages of fire, the rate of fire spread is determined by the heat release rate of a burning fuel. This statement is A, B, C, D. The correct answer is correct. Okay. Letter A. So, during the stages of fire, the rate of fire spread is determined by the heat release rate of a burning material. Okay. The key term is the heat release rate. So, that's the key term. So, heat release rate during the early stage of fire, the rate of fire spread is determined by the heat of release rate of the burning fuel. So, ito yung exothermic. So an example could be illustrated by the burning wood shavings and a block of wood of the same weight. The wood shaving would ignite and burn much faster than the wooden wood. Kasi wood shaving yung mga kwan ba, yung mga dust or particle na nanggaling sa kahoy, no? That's wood shaving. Okay. So it's almost 4. At 4 o'clock, we will have a short break and then we will recharge for a minute. So mga 10 minutes short break sa top for you to also to stretch your reflexes para tatagal pa tayo hanggang 12:00 ng madaling araw. Okay? So I'm just joking, class will just end at 5 or 6. Okay. So the power usage of electrical devices compared with fire heat release rate. So ito yon yung mga heat release rate niya. Okay. Yan, ito yung mga example naman. What observations can you derive from this picture, class? What do you think is the class? Now, we're talking about the rate of fire, mabilis ba dahil ba ang kuan nito ang mabilis lang ba siya masunog? This is a coffee maker actually, no? So in this picture, can you mention that can we conclude that there is a rapid release of fire due to it's because the coffee maker is an electrical appliance? Do you agree with that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sir, sa electric material sir. Ang yang uban ko na sir kay plastic.
Correct. No, because of the presence of plastic, it will add the rate of release of fire. I agree. But eventually, yung coffee maker naman is made up of glass. Now remember that glass also melt at a boiling point, no? So masusunog din yan once nasusunog to. Pero when in a glimpse of kuan lang, pag hindi nare-reach yung boiling point ng glass, ang mangyayari, yung glass magsha-shattered lang yan, no? Meaning makuan lang siya, mabiak, no? Yung mga ganyan. So that's what happens in this picture. So note from this picture, the higher the energy in the combustion process, the faster is the heat release rate. Yan. So the higher the energy. So lalo na dito, back to this, lalo na pag continue talaga nakasaksak. I just would like to warn you because some of you, I guess, is already residing in a boarding house or in a rented places. When you do not use your electrical appliances, please turn it off and unplug it. Unplug talaga, class. Kasi pag hindi nyo ginagawa yan, this is what happen, no? Kahit hindi mo ginagamit yan, masusunog pa. There is a tendency. Kasi mayroon pa kasi siyang capacitor, yung o resistor niya is maliit lang masyado. There's a tendency na hindi na niya kakayanin yung init na nare-receive. No, lalo na pag may init ang panahon, yung mga electrical appliances like electric fan or aircon, kung hindi naman ginagamit o wala kayo dyan sa bahay, you have to unplug it. Kailangan talaga. Okay? So other things that affects the fire is our ventilation. If you say ventilation, class, this is the oxygen or air leakage through ventilation, no? Or let's say ventilator, or let's say exhaust fan, or for example. So these are what we call ventilation also. Pag ang isang bagay walang ventilation, hindi masyadong lalaki yung apoy. But in the other hand, pag yung ventilation niya is very open or very let us say malakas yung ventilation, meaning to say yung hangin na pumapasok. So this will also affect the rate of the fire, the rate of release of the fire. So, okay, another thing, the three basic factors that control ventilation, we have the general conditions that the fire creates, and the firefighters can create ventilation changes. So may mga sitwasyon kasi yung mga firefighters kailangan nila mag-create ng ventilation, no, to release the gas from the burning building, no? So mamaya I will give you an idea on how this is being conducted by this fireman. Okay? So another board question. What common conditions may be produced when air suddenly enters a ventilated, non-ventilated area? Take note. Where carbon and other products are confined. What's the answer, class? Is it A, B, C, or D?
A.
Letter A.
A.
Okay. Titingnan natin pag letter A ba? Very good. Backdraft yan. Yung K-term nyo, the air suddenly enters a non-ventilated area, or there is a sudden introduction of the air into a room, that is where backdraft occurs. Kasi yung area lang, ang present lang sa kanya ay yung byproduct, yung carbon, may heat na, may mga gases na. Ang kulang na lang sa kanya is yung hangin. Pag binuksan nyo ng biglaan yung door, you suddenly introduces air into it, and that causes the explosion or backdraft. Okay. So the weather also is a factor, class, that affects the temperature or the flame. Okay? So another question, which of the following is not a means of measuring temperature? So the correct answer is, very obvious naman to, compass. Okay. So take note, Rankine, Kelvin, and Celsius are used in the in measuring temperature. So another question. There are three primary effects that structured geometry will have on fire, except, what's the correct answer? Titingnan natin, letter D. Okay. All of these are what we call primary effects or structure of geometry except humidity. Okay. So structure geometry, once the fire has started in a compartment such a room or building, the fire development will be determined by compartments configuration and construction. So it is the primary effects. There are three primary effects. Number one is ventilation, ability to retain heat, and the additional fuel load of the compartment. And then we have the human factor. Okay, human factor also. So every person has unique daily living habits that are a product of their environment, heritage, and personal preferences. Example, housekeeping, choice, arrangement of furnishings, and interior and environmental conditions. So this will also create the the rate of fire, no? So pag lalo nating pinapaganda yung bahay, the more it will become attractive to fire. Okay? So okay, in addition, human will react differently to fire. For example, once the fire becomes observable, the people will do things that impact the fire development. We have the changing ventilation, the leaving a door open when leaving, breaking a window, spreading the fire, and so on. So these are human reactions to fire. Okay, so at this point, before we proceed, let us have a short break so that others will have to stretch their reflexes. So let's just give a 15-minute break so that others can rejoin us in this discussion. Okay? So you may now take your coffee or